gift for Valentine's Day. Let me get my phone so I can see who all is coming in so I can greet you guys as you're coming in. And of course, we want you to share this broadcast because this is not just important information. If you let me tell it, it's legacy information. And I got this super fantabulous, amazing book for Valentine's Day. And for those of you who know me, like really, really know me, you know, like I'm like this closet nerd, right? I don't even know if I'm in the closet anymore. I think I'm out. So I'm just this super love to read, love to just embody everything about books, and I always have. And so for Valentine's Day, a special friend of mine named Kiara Solomon got me this amazing book called Black Fortunes. And oh my God, I lost my mind. Like I ate the book literally in like a day. Hey DeAndre, hey Shalonda, hey Kiara, hey Chanel, Kimberly, Shirley, and Nicole. Hey guys, make sure you share the broadcast. And so I just embodied this book. And it was amazing because for someone who reads so many books, for someone who knows so much about history, hey Mary, hey Pastor Connie, hey Sandra, hey Judge, for someone who prides themselves in being learned, this was a whole body of information that I've gone all of my adult life and did not know. And so, long story short, I'm like, bruh, I gotta reach out to whoever wrote this masterpiece, right? I just gotta just breathe the same air they breathe, right? And if I'm bold enough, I'm gonna ask them to come on my Facebook Live so I can interview them. And he was so humble and gracious and just super willing to participate that I was just amazed. And so I want to introduce you guys to Shomari Willis. And Shomari, I want you to start by telling us. And guys, again, to me, this is definitely a critical moment. So make sure you share the broadcast because I think it's going to teach you a lot about why you're so afraid of money, why we're so afraid of money. Has a lot to do with our legacy, our post-traumatic stress disorder when it comes to wealth and what we've had to go through to even get here. And as we observed the other night, we're not that far out of slavery that we would have forgotten the pain. We may not know where it comes from, but it's still with us. And so make sure you share the broadcast because somebody needs to hear this. But Shomari, like just to start by telling us who you are and what you do, but more importantly, why? Why'd you write this book?
Hey, Danielle, I appreciate you having me, and thanks to everybody else for having me. It's really honor and a pleasure to be here, especially on the last day of Black History Month. It's really cool. So I'm a journalist. I'm from Washington, D.C., and I've worked at CNN for a little while, and I worked at Good Morning America. But I've been wanting to write this book for about 4 or 5 years. Just because as a Black person, I thought that the narratives around Black people and money, what we talk about when we talk about Black folks, and we talk about money, it's a little depressing. It's a little oversimplified. It's a little hopeless. And I knew that wasn't the case. Certainly are very, very real struggles out there, but I knew that there was more. And I wanted to tell these stories, so that people knew that, and they knew that it's just not necessarily Oprah or Magic Johnson or folks out here doing things, but there's a long, long, long history of folks that did very well economically and contributed a lot to the African American community and us getting where we are, because a lot of what we have, I think we assume like white people or Abraham Lincoln or somebody paid the bill for us to have it. The civil rights movement or, ending slavery. But there were folks all along the way who, against incredible odds, were really able to, make a lot of money and do great things with it. So I just wanted to tell that story.
Wow, what an amazing tale. Got to do a little social media housekeeping because one thing I always say is that bad news is quick to spread. And good news, amazing news, pivotal news, life-changing news is very slow to spread. So I'm going to stop real quick. And I'm going to ask you, as you hear things that are instrumental to change as it relates to African American economics. I want you to post them on your Facebook. I want you to post them on your Instagram. I want you to post them on your Twitter with a hashtag Black Fortunes, right? BlackFortunes, Black Fortunes. And for those of you who are just joining, that is the name of the book. You can cop it on Amazon. As a matter of fact, a quick story. My grandmother used to have these African American Encyclopedia Britannicas, if you will, at her house. And that's how I learned about Black history. To me, this is the new African American Encyclopedia Britannica. If your kids don't read this, this is the new bedtime story for your children. You must let your African American children know that they come from money. If you agree with that, look at your neighbor and say it agreed. You must let your children know that what they see in us right now is not what or how it has always been. And so until we teach them something different, they go to a school and the school teaches them that you came from slavery, but that's not how the story ends. So guys, Black Fortunes, hashtag Black Fortunes, as Shomari is talking, go to Amazon, buy your copy. When you bought your copy, because we want to support, make sure you sound off in the chat room. I bought mine. This is a family legacy. When you leave your kids something like this, their pockets will never be empty. So wow, Shomari, 4 or 5 years you wanted to write the book. Tell us about the struggle, because as a writer, I know we have these ideas, right? But life gets in the way.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a struggle. I was a journalist, right? Working for these news organizations. So there's always a lot of work. So trying to balance that out with writing the book, always pursuing, something that's a dream of yours or that you've always wanted to do. It's always a struggle to balance that out with, your 9 to 5. The other struggle for me, and I don't know if there's any folks out there that have done their genealogy or, tried to, is that the records for African Americans are not so great. Like you get past a certain point, especially when you get back into the slave period, it's just nothing, So for me, one of the things I had to overcome was the actual research of actually researching this book was really, really hard, because there wasn't a lot of stuff there for me to dig into. So I had to get very, very creative, and sometimes I would get frustrated, just like, I can't find this. How am I going to find this? How am I going to tell these stories? Because the information is literally not there. So it's just a lot of dead ends, and, kept going until I finally was able to find what I needed. I woke up every day very motivated, to tell these stories. I felt like it was my responsibility. But it wasn't an easy book to write. The writing of it was just joyous, to tell these stories, but the actual research, as a lot of African Americans can relate to, when you try to dig into Black history, it's not as documented as well as it is for some other folks. So that was a constant struggle, but, hopefully I overcame it.
So I want to point out, because when we staged this whole thing, thank you, Asha, for purchasing your book. Mimi said, I bought mine. Kiara said, I bought mine 3 times, right? So if you bought a copy of the book for your family because you want to support, make sure you put hashtag I bought mine in the chat. But guys, one thing that he said, and when we staged this whole thing, I said, okay, Shomari's going to talk about the past because that's critical. But I'm going to talk about the future of Black Fortunes. For those of you who have yet to put your knowledge on paper, look at your neighbor and say, write it down. Because if you don't write it down, it never happened. If you don't write down your history, how do your children know what you went through to get here? Kimberly said, I bought mine. Her 12-year-old loves it. Katrina said, I bought mine. Also, V said, I bought mine. Donna said, I bought mine. If you don't write your history, thank you, D. Marie said, I bought mine. If you don't write your history down, how's your family going to know How you going to pass your knowledge on? So he said something critical about genealogy, and we're not telling our story. Our records are incomplete. There was a time that we couldn't read and write, but we can now. Don't let that escape you. So what's been the reception on the book? Very curious.
Reception has been positive. I've been really, really, really happy about that because, I wanted to do a good job, because the stories, I think they're very important, and these folks, for such a long time, their stories have not been told, so I felt really a lot of responsibility to try to do it right. So the reception has been good. It's been reviewed in a couple places. New York Times did a feature on it. Washington Post did a good review. Ebony as well. So the reception has been very good. But it's also been important to me. I see the messages of the folks saying they bought the book and they like the book, and folks tweet at me and they say they like the book. For me, that has been the most meaningful. People telling me I bought this book and it made me feel a different way about myself, or I bought this book for my kids, because that's really why I wanted to do it.
Well, I know personally, as somebody who did earn $1 million last year, was my first year ever earning $1 million in my life, and being on this pursuit to teach other people to do the same thing and generate revenue at that same level. This was like high octane added to my gas.
Well, congratulations, first of all.
This was like, girl, you ain't tripping.
Right.
And do have the capacity and the mindset and the perseverance. And what this showed me, Shomari, was that a lot of the fear that we are holding about generating revenue is inherent. And we got it from our ancestors. What do you think about that?
It is, if you think about how we started out, we were not, earners, we were assets, somebody else's asset. So the last thing they wanted was for you to have economic power, so that's always been a struggle that we fought, and what these folks in this book fought. How do you go from being somebody else's asset, to financial empowerment? And that's why I think the stories are so powerful, because our relationship with money is just started out in a very, in a horrific way, at least in this country. So there's always been an effort to separate African Americans from money, whether it was slavery or whether it was Jim Crow. You couldn't get certain jobs, you couldn't get a house a certain place. Thank goodness a lot of those obstacles are behind us. But there's a lot of pain, and there's been a lot of sacrifice along the line to get to today. Where you have folks that are able to do the wonderful things that they're doing. But that's still there. It's still there. But I just wanted folks to understand that the poverty aspect of it, right, is horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible to see some of the poverty that exists in a country like America. But there's more to it. And if there's more to it, then there's possibility, there's hope, there's aspiration. Yes, there's a lot of layers to it,
It's been layers like an onion, Shomari, layers like an onion. Thank you, Deborah, for purchasing your book. She said, I bought mine. Shakita said, I bought the book and the Audible. Hello? You better get it twice, baby. I'm going to read it and I'm going to hear it. I'm going to let it sink into my soul. One thing I want you to post out there, guys, that he said that's so critical. He said, we've gone from being assets to earners. # Black Fortunes. And that was what was so powerful to me, is that these individuals, thank you, Quintella, for buying your book. And if you haven't shared the broadcast, make sure you share the broadcast. These individuals literally went from being an asset to being a 7, and some of them 10, and by today's standard, 12, $20 million earners. And it begs the question, what's our excuse? Thank you, DeAndre. She said she's buying some for gifts. What do you think, Shamar, when you compare just the sheer obstacles that they had to go up against, being shot and being burned out, and the threat of lynching, and the threat of, your family being raped and sold away from you. You had to go through all that just to have wealth. And then nowadays we have the opportunity without as much pressure, but yet we don't pursue it as doggedly. What do you think about that?
Well, so these folks in the book, some of the folks they were dealing with, some of the white folks, some of the white folks were helping them, but some of the white folks, they hated these people. They could not stand it. How is a black person going, to have all this money? And they did everything they could to separate them from their money, try to separate them from their life. There's not one character in this book that did not have their life threatened in one way or another. Some of them actually were shot.
Multiple times.
Yes. There's a guy named Bob Church. He's the first black millionaire in the South. He was shot at 3 times. They hit him twice. And this is not 3 shots in one shooting. There were 3 different shootings, right? By 3 different, these folks were police officers, and they were actually veterans of the Confederate Army, so you know what their ideology was. But yeah, he survived that. I mean, I think that we need to take stock of our situation today. It's not that there aren't obstacles anymore. Certainly there are. Racism is not dead. And the byproducts of it, are still very much here, and still very much felt. But you have to take stock of the fact, like, these folks overcame so much more, under such enormous pressure. And not only did they have enormous pressure to just protect their lives and make money, they were a resource. They were the only resource for African Americans. Just tell you 2 stories very quick. Ida B. Wells, the guy named mentioned Bob Church, the first black millionaire in the South from Memphis, escaped slavery from a Confederate ship, swam to freedom in the Mississippi. Incredible guy, but he was the richest black man in the South. And Ida B. Wells, she got in sort of a jam one time, and she didn't know Bob Church, but she needed some money. And so she wrote to him and asked him for the money, because she said he was the only man in my entire race that I could think of that could afford to give me the money. And he gave her the money and became a supporter of hers for a long time. And then another character, Mary Ellen Pleasant, she was a black woman, became a millionaire in California during the gold rush. Her nickname was Black City Hall. And the reason they called her that is because she was not a person, she was an institution, right? She was a free black woman with money, and literally every black person in San Francisco, and really in California, if they needed help, they had to go to her. So they called her Black City Hall. So not only were these folks risking their lives, trying to make money, which is not easy, but they were carrying everybody else. And, so how do they do that? And then today, there certainly are obstacles, but one of the things that I don't like when we get into this thing where we're looking so deeply at the obstacles and we're so in touch with how hard they are to overcome, that we just want to throw our hands up. There's just, black folks are doomed. We're never going to have any money. We're never going to have any prosperity. We're never going to have any peace. This is just the way it is. They got us, we can't do anything. I hate that. I hate that. I don't like to use the word hate, but I don't like it, and, certainly when you compare it to what happened in the past, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense,
This is easy. So look, Shamar, and what you don't know about me is I'm low-key messy, right? So you got to go back and tell the truth about old Ida. Because Ida had talked smack about Bob before he gave her the money. Tell the people now. And that's
right.
The people now. She
right.
talked about old Bob and then had to bow down and go to Bob and then get a little change, right?
Right. So, I mean, she wrote a column, and she didn't mention him by name, but it was obvious who she was talking about. And, she was basically criticizing, rich black men, and said the rich black men didn't do anything for the community. And there was she lived in Memphis at the time. He's the only rich black guy in Memphis, only black, rich guy in Memphis at his scale. So she was obviously talking about him and just thought, that he was just this, kind of sellout, right? Because he wasn't on Front Street saying everything he was doing for the community. He was just doing it. And she didn't know this, right? And so she got into this jam. She needed some money. He wrote him for the money. When she came back, she went to him and she said, "Hey, I want to repay you the money." He said, "No, absolutely not. No, you're not repaying me the money. That's yours." And he just always did things for the community, whether it was helping out Frederick Douglass, whether it was helping out black churches. There was a black church that was burned down. Bob Church, the thing that was interesting about him is he had a little bit of Tupac in him, He was. So he used to carry a pistol at him. He got shot enough times, he started carrying a pistol on him at all times. And one of the things that he was involved in this group called the Tennessee Rifles, which was a group of black men that he led, and they were armed. And, basically they were there to combat lynch mobs. So when they would take a black man to jail, and usually the lynch mob would come and get the black man out of the jail with the help of the police a lot of times, and they would lynch him. Bob Church, whenever they take a black man to jail and there was some controversy around it, him and his boys would just go stand in the jail with their guns and, basically dare somebody to do something. He's just an incredible guy, so I could talk about Bob Church for hours, but, they did so much, so you kind of have to ask, like you said, what's our excuse?
And he literally built Beale Street, right? I mean, like for the institution that Beale Street is now, that's who was the force behind buying the land and, bringing the juke joints there, the eateries, that. But I'll tell you this. I wanted to go back to this because as African Americans, we're so quick to put our mouths on other African Americans. We quick to say what Oprah ain't doing with her money and what Michael Jordan ain't doing with his money and what Beyonce and Jay-Z need to do with their money. So I'm gonna just give you guys a suggestion that going forward, whether or not you agree with an African American's take on a situation or a politician's take on a situation, that doesn't have to be for public consumption. You really don't know unless you know that person what they're really doing. And Bob wasn't no outspoken man based on what I read in the book. So he wasn't just running around telling everybody what all he was doing. And some of the stuff that he was doing, had folks known, would have got him killed.
It's true.
So you don't know what I'm doing with my money behind the scenes while you over there running your mouth. And we've just got to be careful because the same way he got it, anybody else could have been out there getting it, but were they willing to be shot in the head twice and shot and, were they willing to run the risk? What do you think about this, Shomari?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's interesting, that you pulled that out for the book. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, but, I hadn't thought about the fact that Ida had to kind of come back and, humble herself. I mean, she did, she did it very quickly and she actually became a big fan of his, but you just don't know, you just don't know what people, are doing with the money. I mean, in some cases you do. I mean, and if someone's doing something, that's, unsavory, that's one thing, but, you don't know. I mean, and, I do think it's important that folks contribute, but I mean, as was the case with Ida, she didn't fully know what she was talking about when she criticized him. So it's important to know what you're talking about before you kind of start, shooting those arrows.
Right?
Yeah.
Talking about So, like I said, to me, slavery was a very divisive institution. And if you read the old Jim Crow books, that was the philosophy, was divide and conquer.
Right.
And so we've got to always make sure how much of that is still embedded in us, because that is what we're taught to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not just in support of African American businesses or African American people. I support all people. But in order for me to do better, I got to know where I came from. So, guys, if you're just joining, we're talking about the book Black Fortunes that was written by Shomari Willis. Go grab your copy. Once you grab your copy, make sure you put hashtag I got mine, or as we were saying, I got mines in the chat. Hashtag I got mines in the chat. And guys, share the broadcast because this is what I want to talk about too. And I told this story the other morning. So if you heard it already, forgive me. You know, sometimes I'm a little senile. You know, I act like my Amy. But I remember reading about these monkeys, right? And they put the monkeys in a cage, and they put bananas at the top of the cage. And of course, naturally, the monkeys are going to try to run to the bananas. But every time the monkeys try to run to the bananas, they spray cold water on them and knock them down. So what the monkeys learned is if you try to go for those bananas, you get a blast of cold water, you're going to get knocked out. And so this happened over and over and over until eventually, even when none of the original monkeys still lived in a cage, not one monkey would go for those bananas. Why is that? Because we learn what's dangerous from our mothers and our fathers. And sometimes we don't even learn why we're taught a particular thing. It's just a feeling that we get. And so a lot of us, I feel, we fear money and we fear success because we were taught that you're going to have to struggle to maintain it, to get it, and it may even cost you your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what do you think, Shamar? Because I never thought about it. I just thought it was just fear. But this is like a mortality fear.
I mean, oh yeah. I mean, it's yeah, definitely. I mean, these folks, you mentioned Bob Church, he was shot twice in the head. I mean, you know, I mean, you see the way he had to cope. I mean, I'm not going to get into it right now, but if you read the book, I mean, he had to do some serious stuff to cope with the pain because they couldn't, you know, the bullet, he had a bullet hole the size of your, you know, of the tip of your thumb in the back of his head. You know, there was a brother, Jeremiah Hamilton in New York. He was a Black Wall Street broker. He was almost lynched. His house was raided. He ran away from the lynch mob, and you know he got away, but you know he was almost lynched. If you fast forward a little bit, you know, Jim Crow, you know, certainly, you know, whether it was you know, the sharecropping fields with the lynchings and the terror that we encountered there, or whether it was another place, Black Wall Street, whether I write which I write about in the book, which was this thriving Black community. Economically, the dollar circulated 26 times in the community before it left. That was burned down, you know. So that fear, yeah, I mean, I do think that comes from a real place, you know, in our history. You know, you know, there's good reason for us to, you know, have a little pain around that. But I mean, Danielle, you can probably, you know, speak pretty well about, you know, not turning pain into fear or, you know, overcoming fear that's come from pain a little bit better than I could.
You know, I think they say that if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I think with me, more than anything, just understanding the history gave me new enlightenment to even my own fear, my own relationship with money. Where did this come from? Where did that come from? It just gave me a new sense of being,
Mm-hmm.
and a new shred of hope that it's not this possible for me. It's possible for a lot of people. And what we're able to achieve according to our faith. And so when we see somebody like individuals in that book that were able to do it, of course, against many, many obstacles, to me, it strengthens our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things that I love most about the book is that it was a super beacon of light Not too long ago, I read an article in Fortune magazine that said by 2053, the average median of African American and Latino households is going to be zero. The average median wealth, zero. The average median. So you telling me we just ain't going to have no money? And 2053 is not too far from now. So you're telling me in 35, 36 years, my children, my grandchildren, they're not going to have any hope for being financially well off. And that saddened me to my core. I think I talked about it for days, and I think I talked about it till I was blue in the face. And it reestablished my mission for letting so many individuals know that you don't have to just take what they give you. You live in a free commerce society. Get up every day and act like it. Mm-hmm. Get up every day and act like you got the freedom that our forefathers fought for us to have. Get up every day and act like you can go out and sell pretty much anything you want, except for a few things, y'all. Now, don't be out there talking about, Coach told me to get it how I live. Now, unless you're on the West Coast, y'all can't be selling that hemp. Unless you're in Nevada, you can't sell your body parts. But it's just so many other things that make you great and make you brilliant. Why wouldn't you capitalize on that like every single day? And what happens as a result of that is that we start to be uninspired. So if you're tired, or if you don't feel like life is working on your behalf, I don't think you're tired. I think you're just uninspired. And so you have to go back to the root of, if I don't do something to change this, what's going to happen? Yeah, they said we're going to be broke, Shomari.
Well, can I talk about that a little bit?
Yes, please do.
So there's certain things, and I want to talk about where they come from. And I'm talking about, talk a little bit about my history. I'll start out with it. My great uncle, John Mott Drew, he was one of the first Black millionaires in Philadelphia. His money, I don't want to say it was lost, but it certainly was diminished by the fact that he didn't have a will. And look, maybe it's just me, but I know a lot of folks in my family have died without wills. I know a lot of other Black folks who have had people in their family who have died without wills. And I think about, well, why is that? And it goes back to the fact we didn't used to have wills. We used to be in people's wills, right? I'm going to give Toby to my son. I'm going to give Emma to my daughter, right? And so you don't really get a culture around having estate planning and deciding what you're going to leave to your kids when your property. We didn't have banks. It wasn't until the turn of the century when we started really having a lot of Black banks. So for a long time, for about 40 years after emancipation, literally as a Black person, you had to put your money in your pockets. It wasn't a, lifestyle choice. You had to, or you kept it in a coffee tin. There was no choice. Okay, the white bank was not going to let you put your money in the bank. You could not invest in the stock market. People are starting to talk about a lot about redlining. Or Black people, literally, our property was devalued, and so that creates a culture, right? If you've never had to plan an estate or plan a will, why would you don't pass it down to your kids. If you can't, there's no banks that you can go to. You're not going to think about managing your money. You're just trying to put it somewhere where people can't find it and take it from you, right? And so a lot of things that it's just like, this is just the way it is. Black people don't do estate planning. We don't do money management. We don't, we don't invest. It's just not who we are. It's not who we are. That is a leftover. That's an artifact from the things that were done to us. So if we can turn those things around and we can start, looking at, cash flow, which I know is Danielle's big area of expertise, money management, estate planning, investing, that doesn't have to be the case, and it would really, really make me sad if that came to be the case, because that would mean that they won.
So here's the thing, Shomari, and I wanna get your opinion on this too, and I agree with you absolutely. One thing we have to realize is that a lot of these lessons we've not been taught. We've not been taught to earn money because a lot of us weren't born into entrepreneurial families.
Mhm.
We weren't. And guys, if you're just joining, let me reset real quick. If you've not shared the broadcast, thank you, Jackie, for sharing. Hey, Cheryl, good evening. If you haven't shared the broadcast, make sure you share the broadcast. If you have a question for Shomari, make sure you put it in the chat. Thank you, Deborah, for buying the book. I saw you said that you bought yours. Shakita, it was a couple of other people that said I bought mine. Jamila, I bought mine. D. Marie, thank you guys. I appreciate the support. We're talking about Black Fortunes. Thank you, Donna, for sharing, which is a book about the first evolution. I'm going to say that of Black millionaires, and many of these Black millionaires we didn't even know existed. So this book is not only motivational, because we know if he can do it for them, he can definitely do it for us. But it's also inspirational because if they can do it against all of those odds, then we almost don't have any excuse. Hey, Sister Charvette. And so we're talking about this book, and I want you to post something out on social media. And Shomari said something very critical. He said, we don't know anything about writing wills because we used to be part of the will. So we went from being an asset that was given away in the will to holding assets. And whenever you make transitions at the speed of light, there are going to be some things you don't know. And that's what always trips us up is the paperwork. So we literally went from being the assets, the slaves, to holding assets. And to this day, we still don't have all of the necessary habits that are needed to manage money. But I'm going to tell you, earning money is a skill. Money management is a skill. Protecting your legacy is a skill. All of those things require knowledge. And like we talked about the other day, knowledge, if you don't apply it, is just knowledge. Applied knowledge is wisdom. So we need to start to be wise about, number one, doing whatever it takes to learn these lessons. Once you know that you got a gap and you continue to have that gap, that's just negligence to me. So Erica, I see your question. I'm gonna let Shomari answer it, and then I'm gonna put my own spin on it. So Erica's question was, what is a good plan for us to begin owning our communities and begin buying Black? How much time do you think that would take, and what would it take? Thanks, Fan, for buying the book. Love you, sis.
Well, I think they give a two-part answer. I think you want to start small, right? I think you want to look at the businesses that are already in your community, that are African American owned businesses, or diverse owned businesses that support the community. And you want to start there. You want to start trying, to support those folks, those entrepreneurs. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is that at some point we're going to have to address the fact that just there are basic needs, basic things that African Americans use to make up the majority of our spending that we're just not able to buy from Black people. And we have to start to have some tough discussions. So the top three spending categories for Americans are housing, food, and transportation. Now, there's a lot of Black people out here that are landlords or, have Black landlords or own their own house. So that's good. Although that's a little bit down lately. So we need to figure out what's going on there. But, I can't remember ever going to a Black grocery store, and you certainly can't get a car, that's manufactured by a Black company. Now, part of the reason is is that, the big grocery store chains, your Kroger, your Publix, your Whole Foods, they dominate and they're these big corporations. Same thing with cars. So I think at a certain level, if, we make up a lot of these companies, bottom line, and I think we have to, at some point, start asking for some representation. We buy a lot of cars, we buy a lot of food, at proportion, buy about, 12, 15% of food, 12, 15% of cars. But if you look at the boards and the executives of these corporations, they're nowhere near 12 or 15% Black. So we have to figure out, like, can we advocate for these companies to have some representation, or do we need a Black Elon Musk, right, to go make a black owned car, right? One of those things, but I say those are big things, and that would really take a movement to do that, which I would love to see. But I say start small. The Black laundromat, the Black auto mechanic, the Black coffee shop, the Black restaurant. I mean, Black folks have some incredible restaurants. Black clothing boutiques. Just small little purchases. You know what I mean? And those things can become habits. And then before you know it, the dollar's circulating a little bit, and, the buy local movement. We think of, like hipsters, right? When we think of buy local, but Black folks, if we just think about buying local in our own communities, that would be one way to kind of get that started.
And Erica, what I wanted to say about your question was that we've already started. You said, what is a good plan? But Erica, you belong to a community where we support each other, where we support each other's businesses. And even in the networking course that I did the other day, I talked about how we need to be referring, because even as opening your mouth, even as saying, go buy this book, go take Chiquita's real estate class, go get your landing page done from Van, go get your email funnel set up from Kiara, go get your career advice from Shalonda, go get your house clean from Marissa. We already do that. And so the second part of that is, how do you build your community and expand upon that? Because everybody in my community is accountable for building your own community. So regardless as to what the primary purpose of that community is, Erica, it's all the same. So you said you're talking about grocery stores, cleaners, and cars, but it has to start somewhere. And if it doesn't start somewhere and take root, see, sometimes things don't start where you think they should start. It's been tried before with grocery stores. It's been tried before with car dealerships. It's been tried before with dry cleaners. That's been tried before. So us, this new generation of entrepreneurs, these digital entrepreneurs, these online entrepreneurs, this is just as much a business as any dry cleaner, as any restaurant. What I'm doing is, anyway, this is a business to me. Like Jay-Z say, I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. So this is already the root. So you got to ask yourself, what am I doing to contribute to fertilizing the root, to watering the root, to getting the root some sun? Who am I inviting into this community? How many of y'all text somebody today and said you need to show up tonight? How many of y'all emailed 5 people and said you need to be here tonight? Is somebody sitting in this audience that didn't even share this broadcast? This is how it starts. See, at some point you can't look at him because he wrote the book. He done his job. He did his job. We got to say, what are we going to do? It's an everybody job. And we can't look to nobody but ourselves for the resolution. That's the true story. Shomari, I be getting crunked. They don't pay me no attention.
I was there. I was with you. I was with you.
Erica don't pay me no attention. But I'm serious about that because it's easy to push it on somebody else and say, how do we do this? But we're already doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's inspiring to hear about, what you guys are doing. So absolutely, I amen that. I second that.
I mean, that Common commercial, he summed it up. Common said we got more access to more technology, to more education, to more knowledge, to more tools than ever in history. What are you going to do with it? So I can tell you, I keep a pile of books in front of me because you won't hide that new knowledge from me. I can tell you, I'm always looking for a webinar or conference where I can go and learn something that I don't already know. And I can tell you that the minute I learn it, I turn it over to the masses. I don't have no knowledge. So this is a personal journey to me. And if you haven't already done your review of the book Black Fortunes out there on Amazon, if you could, that's what's going to make the next person buy it. Basically, if you came here tonight, consider yourself having read the book, go on over there to Amazon and complete the review, because those reviews impact the algorithms on Amazon and how much the book is offered to other people. And if you haven't bought your copy of the book yet, make sure you go out to Amazon.com and buy your copy of the book. But we're living in a whole age where absolutely anything is possible from anybody. So this is the day that we stand up and say, if it is to be, it's up to me. It's up to me, Shomari. Talk to the people. I be getting listened, but don't pay me no attention.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, and technology is the future. And it's just refreshing, to see, what you guys are building, through technology and, the network and the business network you guys are going and support. That's where it starts, and, snowballs and, can become whatever is envisioned for it to be. So yeah, it's exciting to hear about. I mean, it's really exciting,
It's a culture. See, I used to be a vice president at JP Morgan Chase, and every time, and I know you know the history of Chase, we had so many mergers at one point. I thought that was our business. I thought we were in the merger business. I no longer thought we were in the banking business. But every time we merged with a different company, there had to be a culture shift. See, what we need is a culture shift, right? You have to teach people how to behave. Maya Angelou says you teach people how to treat you. So we've got to relearn some things. We've got to relearn the value of each other. We've got to relearn the fact that everybody brings something to the table. We got to relearn that we got to celebrate each other, and we must relearn that we must afford each other grace.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't give each other nothing else.
Mm-hmm. And what you were saying about, if you need your website done, I'm sorry, I don't remember all the names, but if you need your website done, you go to this person. If you need house cleaning, you can go to this person. If you need, career coaching, you can go to that person. It reminds me of Greenwood, Black Wall Street, because that's basically what that was. It was about Black self-sufficiency. And the fact, this basically, if you need something, find a way to get it from somebody in your network, and, find a way to get it from somebody in your community. In Greenwood, Black Wall Street, rather, it was a powerful place. They had to tear it down. They had to destroy it because it was so powerful, So,
burn this ground. And guess what, guys? They can't burn these internets.
That's true.
They can't burn this to the ground. But you gonna burn my iPhone? I go to the Apple store and give me another one tomorrow.
All right.
We just have so many advantages over where we've come from that we've got to get to the point where that we utilize them. I don't want to monopolize the conversation. Guys, what other questions do you have for Shomari? Yep, absolutely, Audrey. Start supporting each other instead of, that hate and jealousy and all that. That comes from that old Jim Crow teaching too. What will you guys do to spread the word? How many of you agree to tell at least 5 people about this book? And not just, girl, go buy this book, but tell them at least 2 or 3 reasons that this book should be a staple in their household. See, there's a certain thing. Thank you, Mary. Mary said, I will. There's a certain thing about his story. Vanessa said, thank you, Shomari. And his story, unless written by you, Kimberly said, I have and will tell more. Chiquita said, me, will always have a slant to it. There's an audio book right now, Monique. I believe it's available on Audible because Chiquita said she got it. So his story, unless you take the time to write your story, will always tell you something that's a slant. Oh, absolutely, Charvette. Reach out to him. He's very humble. Charvette said she needs to have you on her show, on her podcast. Absolutely. Nikki said she'll bless people with the book. And absolutely, our children need to know this. Thank you, Jamila said it's already on audio and Kindle. Thank you, love. Vanessa said I bought mine on Audible. Thanks, sis. So this is what support looks like. We learn and we share. We spread the torch, and then you just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Judge, this is an amazing history lesson. I'm gonna tell you, they talk bad about Attila the Hun, but it wasn't his people talking bad about him. The Huns loved Attila. They said he was an amazing leader. They made sure he kept his tribe fed and he kept land for them and space for them. So you gotta watch who's telling the story as to who the enemy really is. Yeah. Gotta be careful. That's absolutely right, Marissa. The word says a wise man leaves a legacy for his children's children. Once you teach your children how to make money, that is the legacy that you leave them. Once you teach them to be good stewards over their finances, that's the legacy you leave them. Erica said I would definitely share and buy them as gifts. DeAndre said, yes, share the book with your networking group. How many of you have already posted out on Facebook tonight? Hey, go buy this book. Do yourself, do your family, do your neighbors, do your community, do your church house a favor and go buy a copy of this book. Introduce this book into your circles. Y'all know it's my bedtime. Getting late. It's getting late, y'all. What questions do you have for Shomari? Thank you.
Oh no, thank you.
If you would have told me no, I would have just been so brokenhearted.
Oh no, that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened.
Would have been. I was so scared to ask.
I'm glad you did. It's anytime. It's a pleasure to do this. It really was.
Oh, I was so scared to ask. I ain't tell nobody I was gonna ask. I said I ain't gonna tell nobody that I'm gonna ask because he tell me no, I ain't gonna tell nobody. He said no. So when you said yes, I called Kiara. That's the person that bought me the book, and I was like, girl. Guess what happened? The name of the book, Renelli, thanks for joining and thanks for asking. It's called Black Fortunes. Y'all, that's a lie. Coach is always scared. I just act anyway. It's called Black Fortunes by Shomari Willis. You can grab a copy out on Amazon. And it is the story of the first Black millionaires. Everybody has this misconception that Madam C.J. Walker, and thank you, Van, for sharing the book title. But everybody has the misconception that Madam C.J. Walker was and that was a story too, boy, by the way, how she came up on her money. Mm-hmm. That was scandalous. But everybody has the misconception that Madam C.J. Walker was the first millionaire, and she actually wasn't. She was the first one to really flaunt her wealth openly, but there were those that came before her, some amazing individuals. And it's the story of that. So grab you a copy out on Amazon. Jackie said, I'm getting one for my children. D. Marie said, me and my 4 grown kids are going to be reading it together as a family. Absolutely. You good, D? You know I can read between the typos. Somebody asked a great question, 2 great questions. Monique said, are you speaking on college campuses?
Yeah, I want to. Definitely the HBCUs. It's something I want to do.
Have you reached out to them for like the Greek days and the orientation, the Black History Month?
To tell you the truth, Danya, I got stuck on my alma mater, Morehouse. I've been trying to I want to go there first, but I need, they've been,
Sometimes, let me tell you about home. Sometimes you gotta go everywhere else before home appreciates you.
Right. It's true. It's true.
We'll talk about it offline.
I'm gonna start branching out, but yeah, I do want to take this, to college campuses and talk to as many.
Yeah, we'll talk about that offline, friend. Hey, Michelle. Michelle, yeah, Mickey, absolutely. Mickey said this Kindle purchases count as far as the ratings. They absolutely do. Wait, very good, Charvette. Charvette said I have a connection for you at Virginia Union University Department of Mass Communication. So that's amazing. Great.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Charvette, one I'm gonna connect you with about the podcast. So don't let me forget.
Okay, definitely.
Somebody asked, what's the next project?
That's a tough question. So, I mean, I have another book I'm working on, which I can't talk about right now. I'm not trying to be pretentious or anything like that. It's just,
no, we understand.
And another project, which I can't talk about, but, you can just, if you do use a little Google, it might be rewarding. I'll say that.
Just know that I'm here if you need me in any capacity.
Yeah, I can't talk about it. I mean, there's some rumors out there. There's some articles out there, so you can check those out. But I can't talk about it quite yet. Yeah, but I'm excited. You'll be one of the first ones I talk to when I actually can speak on this stuff. So I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Sandra said I'm going to speak to my contact at VSU. Thank you, Sandra. Let me know, love. And so that's, this is the power of networking. This is the power of community. This is what you do in order to ensure your own success. So can I tell y'all the truth? I'm not as charitable as you think. I'm not as philanthropic as you think. I'm not this big-hearted, I'm going to share with the world as you think. I just know the laws of the universe. And the laws of the universe are very simple. You help other people get what they want and what they need, you'll get what you need. You don't have to fight it. You put good out there and good will come back. You hold a hand out to somebody and somebody will hold a hand out to you. It doesn't take a lot of thought. You don't have to overthink it. If you wonder why you struggle where you are currently or you're alone, the word says if you want a friend, show yourself friendly. So I showed myself friendly and my friend showed up, my new friend.
I'm glad to have met you. It's a blessing for me.
Anything else? Whoop. Monique said I got contacts at Morehouse Athletics. All right, come through.
All right. All right. Anybody went to HBCU know the administrative end is, it's a little tricky, but that will help out definitely.
You'll be surprised what somebody else knocking can do for you sometimes.
That's true. I'm ready for that. I'm ready for some help.
Absolutely. Well, you got some new friends.
Yeah.
Don't just help the person next to you the way you would want somebody to help you. Absolutely right, Sandy.
Absolutely. And Danielle, you know who you remind me of? You might be her reincarnated. Mary Ellen Pleasant. You really
I honor.
You really do remind me of Mary. You really do.
Too funny. I bet you have a bond with these people in this book, huh? Because I do too now.
Yeah, I feel protective of them. I feel responsible for them. you know, I think somebody in the comments was able to pull the comments up now. Someone said, watch who tells the story, right? And, you know, one of the problems with a lot of these folks is that they haven't been written about that much, but the folks that did write about them were white folks, which is why, and it's not, they were particular kind of white folks. I'm not saying I don't have a problem with white people, you know, by any stretch of the imagination, but they were racist is what I should rather say. And Mary Ellen Pleasant, you know, they said she was a voodoo priestess. That's how she got her money. Bob Church, they said he was a pimp. That's how he got his money. You know, Jeremiah Hamilton, the guy I mentioned in New York, that was a millionaire in New York, almost got lynched. They called him the Prince of Darkness, you know, saying basically he was Satan. You know, so, I mean, it's important, you know, and I feel a connection to these folks just in terms of, you know, it's been buried for too long to me. Their stories have been buried, you know, and, you know, they've had all this nonsense said about them, and they haven't really had their stories told. So that was really, really important for me to do, you know, and I tried to do the best job at it I could.
You did an amazing job. You did an amazing job.
Thanks,
and I thank you for giving me some new idols. I don't know if you guys have ever read Napoleon Rich, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. He talks about how he had this panel of people, you know, his board, his personal board of representatives that he always talked to. And these were people from history. So now I have some new individuals to talk to, some new individuals to glean from, some new individuals to lean on, and I appreciate you. And they look like me.
Absolutely.
And that's amazing.
Absolutely. And there's some pictures. I was happy to get some pictures in the book too of these folks. I was happy about that because a lot of folks don't know what these folks look like. So that was fun. Can I show the book, Danielle?
Yeah, you did. I don't know where my cover.
Well, that's how you know you read it, you know. So this is the cover of the book. And, you know, I'm really happy. I think it's pretty. And it's got a Van der Zee famous photograph. And the pictures I mentioned, let me show you Mary Ellen Pleasant, right?
My twin.
Yeah. There's Mary Ellen. And that's actually Bob Church right next to her. You know, but I love Mary Ellen. She had a famous saying. She said, "I'd rather be a corpse than a coward." You know, and I think about that from time to time. So, yeah, I hope you guys get it. I hope you guys like it. You know, it's just been wonderful, you know, chatting with everybody, and it's been an honor, you know, to be on the Facebook Live. So it's good way to spend an evening.
Great way to remind. All right, guys. I just want to thank all you guys for stopping by, grabbing a copy of the book. Just a reminder to zoom out there on Amazon and write a review, a 5-star review. Let me remind you. Isn't that cover beautiful? A 5-star review. Let me remind you. Go now and do it while it's on your mind. Once you buy the book on Amazon, make sure you go out and post on Facebook. As we close out Black History Month, challenge everybody that's your Facebook follower. Look, I just bought Black Fortunes by Show Wills. You can find them on Facebook at Show Wills, SHOWILLS. I just bought Black Fortunes by Show Wills on Amazon, and you can grab your copy here and give them the link, make it easy for them, and challenge them to be a part of the movement that changes the way we see Black economics. All right? Coach, love y'all. Have a great night.
Good night. Thank y'all.
You're welcome.
And you know, feel free to add me as a friend on Facebook. I more friends, the better.
Oh, don't say that. You're going to have 4,000 friends. Ultimately, she's going to kill the live feed. Don't say